Stalingrad. This city bears the name of the boss. It's more than a city, it's a symbol.
Hello, captains, and welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, USS Endeavor, and I loved that scene because every time I heard the word Stalingrad, it reminded me of that specific scene. I felt like including it in there just because I love that guy's voice. Stalingrad. If I could have him narrate this whole dang video, I would, but he's not available. So you're stuck with me. And anyway, on to the video itself, rather. We have reached the pinnacle of the alternate Russian cruiser line, the Stalingrad. Now, it took me a while to grind this ship because, as most of you already know, and for those that don't, if you've been living under a rock for the last couple years, this thing costs a mere 2 million global XP. And boy, even though this is a free legendary, it takes some grinding to get there. But we finally did, and we've been playing some games in her, and I'll be honest, this one took me a while to get, but we do have 2 gameplays that we will be featuring. But before we do that, we'll take a look at the commander that we are using. I missed Kuznetsov, but I have a reason for why I decided to not go with Lightful and go back to Kuznetsov, and it all kind of boiled down to the concealment at the end of the day. And I know that in my previous videos I said that these ships rely less on concealment and more on the gun performance, and although that is true, I was using Lightful for many of my games, and I was struggling, to be perfectly honest. The mod slots that we have real quick, we're using main battery mod 2 for the turret traverse, steering gears in the second, concealment in the third, and in the last we're using the legendary main battery mod 3, which not only gives us 2 extra percent stacks up to 5, meaning an extra 10%, but also extra damage for every 30 or every kill that we get. So that's going to really help with this ship, especially at legendary tier. We have 3 radars. We don't get any hydros. We lose that, and we have 3 heals. So that is a bit of a downside between that and the Petro. On to the survivability, 65,000 with a 25% damage torpedo damage reduction is much better than the Petro. In fact, it's almost 20,000 extra HP that you get versus the Petropavlovsk. So it is a big jump. Plus your armor is a lot tankier, which we will go over. Onto the main battery guns. You have them in the same turret layout as the Petropavlovsk and the Riga. 9 guns, but now they're up to 305 millimeters, the same as the Alaska at this tier. There's a lot of comparisons that can be made between the Stalingrad and the Alaska, and a lot of people have made those comparisons, and they've come to realize that the Stalingrad is not quite as good as the Alaska in a lot of these categories, and they're not necessarily wrong. But looking at the actual guns for this ship specifically, we can reach a range of over 20 kilometers base with a 17-second reload. The 180-degree turn time, because of the first mod slot, we've got it just under 30 seconds, which is still pretty slow. Not very good with the HE. 33% chance to set fires, which isn't bad, and you have them now, which you didn't have before, but almost 10,000 damage per shell for Citadel damage with the AP, which is really good. And with the ballistics that this thing has, it's very good. AA defense is actually pretty good as well. 5.7 kilometer range is where it starts, and you get the bulk of it at 3.5 and 3.1 respectively. Onto the maneuverability, you have the worst turning circle radius in the game. It is the largest, so it's bigger than every battleship, except for it's comparable to the Russian battleships, which also share really bad turning circle radiuses. But this thing tops them all, which is not a good stat. So understand you have to plan your turns in this thing. Concealment is a lot better than what it was with Lightful. At Lightful, I think I had it at around 13.7 to 13.6 or somewhere around that range. But since we've switched and we've gone with Kuznetsov, we've gotten it down to a cool 12.2, which is a lot more manageable. It really, really helps because you get focused in this thing. Onto the armor, which is a very good strong suit, but one that if you don't angle properly will punish the hell out of you. You do have 32 millimeters everywhere, and it gets thicker as you get into the main plate, the main casemate rather. Your side plating where your citadel is also very heavily armored, but again, you have to be properly angled. As you can see, that is your citadel that you can see right there. We're going to take another look at it from the side. It is exposed at all times, so not angling properly in this thing will get you killed, and it'll really chunk you hard. And then lastly, what I wanted to go over is that your superstructure is a decent size. So even though they may not be hitting your 32 millimeters, they can chunk you pretty hard from your superstructure. And the last thing I wanted to point out is that this thing does not take fire damage well. So anything spamming HE shells at you is going to hurt consistently. Okay, captains, we are on the map Hotspot. We are by ourselves, and we spawn really in one of the worst places in the map, smack dab in the middle, where it's nothing but ocean, open ocean, and it's hard to tell exactly which way to go. And even in this match, I really wanted to show this match for a couple reasons. And I'm not afraid to say right off the get-go, I make a big mistake in this match. I'm going to try and point it out when I make it. Although in the heat of battle, it's not something that I was thinking would have been the downfall and a bad play at the time. But having looked back at this game specifically, I can kind of see why... and you'll see by the time the end of the game is why the play that I make ultimately ends up being the wrong move. And so I'm not ashamed, nor am I a stranger to making bad decisions at times. And I don't always want to post things that are always my best games. I never screw up because that's not realistic. I make a lot of mistakes in this game, and I'm the first one to say that. But there are some games where I actually do really, really, really well, and then I make a critical error in that game that ends up costing everybody. Real quick, I want to point out, to answer any questions, yes, you can Citadel Grosser Kurfürsts from 17 kilometers away in this thing when they are flat broadside in the Stalingrad. That is how good these shells are. And you can see just how punishing this Kurfürst has really taken it right here at the get-go. He's trying to get over to that other side, but he has paid with over half of his health right off the bat. Although I completely understand the reasoning for why he wants to make this move. He's trying to get all the way over to Bravo Cap, but boy, did he take a pounding in order to make that possible. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he is not running the concealment mod. The Grosser Kurfürst it is one of the most detectable ships because of how big it is. So, again, right here, I'm trying to figure out still, where am I most needed? We've got our 2 destroyers, which unfortunately are in a division that spawned over at Bravo, and they both are over there, meaning that the ships that are at Charlie, they don't have any spotting. And unfortunately, this division decided to stay at Bravo and contest Bravo and really fight for Bravo. So while they're over there, the spotting is going to be a lot better for me to focus Bravo instead of Charlie. Our ships are all over there. They're all grouped around the cap. We haven't been able to get the cap, and unfortunately... we're not really able to get it, but at the same time, they weren't able to get it either right off the rip. Who didn't see that coming? This Brisbane decided to push too close to the sun and turn broadside to everybody that was over there, and then he gets whacked for his good pleasure. So the Brisbane is definitely not an easy ship at legendary tier to play, especially if you're new, and I can only assume that that was a relatively new player, as we have all of these broadside targets, and I felt like in the moment, while we still have all these targets, I might as well utilize it. Now, I'm not quite sure why I didn't shoot at the Kronstadt there. I guess I was just hoping that he would turn more broadside, but he didn't. But I did hold my shot for the Shimakaze because I was like, I just need a little bit more clearance in order to be able to get that. But then he ends up going dark. So Bravo is definitely getting overrun. So as long as I have these targets and I'm not spotted, I gotta try and take him out as best as I can. This Kerfurst is getting so low, and so that's why I kind of stayed mid. But I've had all of these really, really good shots, and for the most part, because my ballistics are really good long range, might as well keep taking them while I got them. So that's kind of where we were at. But as you can see, we've already lost 2 ships, one of them being one of those destroyers. So our spotting over on this side has been reduced in half. In fact, we've lost 1 ship on both sides. So the Reds have definitely overrun Bravo. As you can see, all of the last known positions of those ships are all kind of grayed out. And there's a lot over there. And this is where I kind of make that error that I was talking about. As you can see, most of my ships are still over at Charlie, and they're really close to getting that cap. There is an enemy destroyer on Charlie. They did a good job. They sent 1 destroyer at Bravo and 1 at Charlie. We unfortunately had the benefit, or if you want to call that, of both destroyers being in a division spawning on their side. Now, albeit, I'll say this, they both spawned on that side. They both went to Bravo. So, in a way, I get it. It's just unfortunate that the matchmaking decided to put them on that side, which really kind of crippled our team at the get-go. I'm not really faulting them for trying to take Bravo, both being spawned on that side, but it did not help us at Charlie, even though we're looking much better at Charlie than we are at Bravo right now. We've already lost the cap at Bravo. Here's a really good shot, the Shimakaze. He does end up going dark, but our ballistics again are really good, and that was AP. I didn't even switch to HE. I did after that AP salvo, thinking I wouldn't be able to finish him off. But again, back to the game, this is where I make that critical error. I decide to join my team. Now, I have boasted in the past, and I've heard it said by many veteran players, and I've even said it myself, the key to playing this game is to go where your team isn't. And that is very true. Obviously, you don't want to go rogue and go out into the wild blue yonder just to be able to get away from your team and be in a position that you really can't affect the match. But in this particular instance, I was trying to play the long game. That we desperately needed Charlie Cap, and my team had been very unsuccessful up to this point, even though we had the numbers on this side. So in an effort, I guess, because I was a little frustrated maybe in the moment as we get a good hit on that A gear, I was like, we've got to take Charlie Cap. We've got to even out these caps. But I joined forces with my team over here because in my thinking, Bravo is got a ton of ships over there. So what luck am I really going to have with it just being me? Even with the armor that I have, I mean, staying bow into those ships while they can't overmatch me, they're still going to focus me really hard, and I would probably end up going down. We finally take the cap, but we're down in score, as you can see, almost by 100 points. We're tied up in ships, and we still have 1 destroyer on either side. And the rest of this match, for the most part, is going to be really, really close. But because I abandoned the middle, and our destroyer is kiting away because he can't take on that Brisbane by himself, and he's basically left out there all alone, while the rest of us are over here, that leaves our home cap, Delta cap, pretty much wide open. All they have to do is really just take care of the destroyer, and if they can do that, then Delta cap is free for the taking, which forces us to have to take their home cap at Alpha to even have a chance. And I got to be honest, I didn't think that Grosser Kurfürst, who got really messed up at the beginning, would still be alive this late in the game, but he is, and so kudos to him for utilizing his health. Now, I'm looking at the score, I'm looking at the ship count, I'm looking at everything, and I'm like, we can win this match, but we got to move, and we got to move now. We do have the Khabarovsk that's out here, and I will say this about the Cobb. He was just staying outside of my radar range, and I know some of you are probably thinking, why didn't you pop your radar? Well, for one, I'm not spotted, and if I was spotted, that's around 12.2 kilometers, meaning that my radar would have been ineffective anyway. And with these two battleships that are coming up over here, we all have to really focus to take him out. I'm paying attention to the bearing locator, which is pointed off my nose, which is where the Khabarovsk is. And then unfortunately right there, we do lose our destroyer like we talked about earlier. So now I'm trying to figure out who do I need to focus here. There we get the high caliber, which we do get some really good damage in this game. We've already eclipsed 160,000 damage, and we're going to get some more. Here we took a little bit of a blind fire because we really need this Khabarovsk off the board. For one, he's points that we desperately need, but two, any destroyer this late in the game that's still alive is only going to be a nuisance. Thankfully, our A gear is pushing around that corner to try and spot, but the Khabarovsk, he does go spotted briefly right there. We do take a shot, but I think he ends up turning, and we end up hitting him, but it's a ricochet. He does have good side armor. The Khabarovsk is one of the most heavily armored destroyers in the game, so we just got unlucky with that shell. And then he ends up going dark, and I'm like, oh, geez. We may not ever see him ever again for the rest of the match, and there goes our chances at actually winning. And that's when I realized right here is that Delta Cap is being flipped. So now we are forced to essentially kill everything. We can't win on score via caps anymore. I was thinking about going towards the cap, their home cap, but at this point, that's too far gone. We don't have enough time left on the clock in order to turn the points in our favor if we were to get that cap. Yes, it would help with our XP, but I'm thinking win the game, not necessarily pad my stats at this point. So, still, again, keeping my eye on the bearing locator and if I stay spotted after we take out this battleship. My thought process is that if that's the case, which now he goes down and I'm still spotted, I was thinking he was just past this island. So I popped my radar, but unfortunately he is behind the island. I mean, he is one shot. He's less than one shot. You could breathe on this Khabarovsk and he'd probably die. But unfortunately, I can't shoot over the island because the mountain icon is telling me I don't have a shot. But because I have him spotted, the Schlieffen that's next to me gets a secondary kill because his secondaries can lob the island. So even though I wasn't able to get that kill, it did help in reducing him, taking him off the board. And now it's just this Des Moines that's out here that looks like they were able to successfully take it. And then he gets whacked really hard, and we're like, oh my gosh, if we can kill this guy, which I honestly thought we got him right there, we actually have a chance to win this. So everybody was pinging the map to try and figure out where these last ships were. I know where one of them is. It's just two cruisers left, the Kronstadt and the Minotaur. Our battleship is asking for support, but we don't have any more destroyers left. Unfortunately, my radar is on cooldown for another minute. And even though I'm in the fully packed range, I still am not I still don't have it. So I can't provide any spotting, and it's less than 2 minutes now. We have to find these guys and hopefully kill them. And we've eclipsed 180,000 damage. And it's around this point that I'm kind of kicking myself for having kind of abandoned that side, because the ship that is alive that's way out there in the smoke is the Minotaur, who is wisely not shooting, although he can't see anything because the Kronstadt is also in the Bravo cap that they took a long time ago, and he's not moving. So both of these cruiser players at the end of the game realize that the best way to win is they have the caps, they have the points lead. They just need to not die in the next minute. So that's their winning condition. Here I finally get my radar back. I pop it in hopes that maybe the Minotaur would be in range, but he's not. So we don't get that. We've been spotted, but the Minotaur is not going to take shots. He knows that he's playing smart. I'll give him that. And because of that, we never get to see him. And unfortunately, this is going to end in a loss, as we're down to now less than 20 seconds. And everybody on the team knows it, that we're not going to be able to do this in time. I know it's easy in times like these to look back at these games and kind of Monday night quarterback, and hindsight being 20/20 as it usually always is. And then we spot the Kronstadt, who's pretty much full health, and it was just not going to happen. So kudos to the enemy team. They played it smart at the end. At least those two cruiser players did. And they did get the caps. And overall, it just ended up working in their favor. We did get some good XP and top of our leaderboard, but it was all for naught. And so that's a look at the first game. Now on to game number 2. And you know, captains, we can't go out in a loss. So this one is going to be a win, but it is still going to be a pretty close game. We don't get the high damage that we did prior, but it's still a very good game. There's no destroyers in this, which is very rare. There is a carrier, a legendary carrier, so this is a really rare game. One that I don't usually ever come across, especially in legendary tier. And so right off the bat, because it's domination game mode and there are no destroyers to worry about, it makes me pushing into Charlie a lot less threatening. But the other team is going to have to do the same thing. Now on our side, we have a Yamato, myself, and this naked Worcester who has no camo. And when I first saw that, I was thinking, oh boy, this is not going to be a great game. I'll be honest, captains, I had a lot of games trying to get a good one for you, and I just could not get it. As we take this shot at this broadside Stalingrad way out there, and we award him for a Citadel shot and take over 11k off of him right off the bat. So, again, these shells, they hold their penetration even at long ranges, and you can Citadel battleships in this thing, no problem. Go ahead and pop the radar, because I kind of want to see what's coming around this corner, and then we get subsequently radared, which I'm assuming is from the Minotaur, because he also has long range. And look at that dispersion. Ugh. Yeah, the Minotaur was bowing on me, but I think I hit one shell and it just barely nicked him. Nobody's over here fast enough to be able to do anything against us. And back to the Worcester and the Yamato that we have over here, we are going to do really well. As, oh, what do you know? Another Brisbane goes down. Seems to be a theme at legendary tier. All the Brisbanes seem to be easy pickings, and for rightly so. It's a Minotaur without smoke, with a worse commander. They really need to get a good commander for that ship, because right now the one that they currently have really limits the way that you can play that thing. Anyway, rant over on the Brisbane. If we get a better commander, I'll definitely take that thing out and revisit it. But right now, Minotaur, in my opinion, is the better ship. So we are here in the cap, and I need to take it. So I've actually stopped, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. I've slowed down because I really want to take this cap. As we learned in the last video, cap control early on is key. And thankfully, we were able to nab this cap. But now we're contested. And I know what's around this corner. There's a Yamato, there's a Minotaur, and there's a Montana. And I am not about to just... Oh, I think there was 2 Montanas, actually, if I briefly saw that. But there's a lot of ships over here. There's a lot of hate coming this way. And I'm not about to just push around that corner and try to be macho and flex my armor in this thing and test that theory. Because I would probably get wrecked. I would definitely be focused, and I wouldn't have any help from the ships that are behind me. Now, to be fair, when I see a ship that has no camo, my faith in that player really plummets, because I'm like, why do you take a ship out in standard and purposefully nerf yourself by not having the camo on? But I will say this, and I shouldn't have done this. I judged him based off of how he looked. Okay, there, I said it. But he proves me wrong in this match, and I'm thankful that he does, as that Yamato behind us did a walloping on the Yamato in front of us, which is very thankful. Even though he's angled out, we are going to start shooting around this corner, and you can see we are going to get some, 4 full penetrations right there. Now, the Yamato can overmatch our bow, which is not good. But if we're angled like this and he shoots at our belt and we angle appropriately, we'll bounce everything that he shoots at us. But I don't really want to take that chance. But thankfully, the Yamato isn't even focusing us. He's focusing the other Yamato that's behind us. Like I said, those other ships are coming in, but they're not coming in fast enough. And this was kind of a mistake that the red team made on this side. They kind of lemming trained in. So as we were, all 3 of us on our side, we were positioned correctly. I'm out here spotting. The Yamato, I believe, is also in that same position to be able to spot. And we're able to take these shots on these ships as they individually come around the corner. And then once they go down, it's like the next ship pops up. And it's like whack-a-mole out here. And unfortunately, they didn't push as a team, as a unit. If they would have done that, I think we would have had a lot harder of a time dealing with them. And right there, our Yamato takes out the Minotaur, which was huge, which is a big torpedo threat. So we take out the Yamato, and then the Yamato takes out the Minotaur, and now there's a Montana coming around the corner. Again, kind of by himself. We angle appropriately, and we bounce all those shells, because the Montana only has 406 millimeter, and we can bounce those because our armor is that strong. And then he gets whacked hard by the Yamato. Again, like I talked about, even though you're angling appropriately, if they aim high enough and they hit you in your superstructure, they're still going to chunk you for some hard damage. Your superstructure has a lot of health in it, and it just seems like a lot of people forget that. But this Montana hit me just right, and so all that damage that we're taking is definitely through our superstructure. But eventually, as they keep doing that, it's going to get saturated, and they're not going to be able to get as much damage as the the other Montana who stayed flat broadside to a Yamato. Learned the hard way, you can't do that. So again, they kind of came out one by one, and we've been able to kind of take these guys out as a team, focusing each ship individually. That's a good recipe for how you play. And we're all randoms. We don't know anybody. I've never played with these guys before, but they all knew what to do, and we all held this side really, really well. And you're going to see at the end of the game, every single kill that happened in this match came either from me or from the Yamato or from the Wooster, all on this side. So we're gonna need to start angling a little bit better against this Montana, because he is pushing, and I'm thinking to try and get the drive-by on this guy. But I also kind of want to stay angled. I don't need to get all of my guns. I don't want to get too overzealous, but the firing angles on this thing is actually pretty good, and we are able to take him out. We do trade a good chunk of our health, though, in order for that to happen. So, unfortunately, we do lose pretty much like over half our health. But we do have the heals, so we're going to get back to that. We do get a stack on our legendary damage, and we've got 3 stacks to our reload. So that is going to help. The enemy Stalingrad is in Bravo Cap, so this is where we get to show the power of the HE that the Stalingrad now has, which is really, really nice. It used to be an AP-only ship, but this recent update, or not the one that we're currently in, but the one before the Christmas one, they updated and gave this thing HE shells. And there we see the power of being able to use that against even another Stalingrad. And like I said, the HE penetrates fairly well, even against enemy Stalingrads. This thing doesn't take HE damage very, very well. It's very susceptible to it, just like battleships are with 32 millimeters of armor. So because that's essentially what this thing is. It's a battleship but it's a cruiser. Battleship armor, cruiser guns. And the one thing that you may not have known is that this ship used to be, for a very, very long time, whether you remember it or not, shortly after this ship came out, the Wargaming actually nerfed it, and they gave it a little bit less AP damage, shell damage, and they increased the fire duration from 30 seconds, which is what all cruisers share, to 45 seconds. So right midway between what the duration for cruisers is, which is 30 seconds, and battleships, which is a minute, because this thing is technically considered a super cruiser, I guess, or a very heavy cruiser. They gave it a longer fire duration, so it just makes it a lot harder for this thing to survive when it's taking fire damage. The Alaska also shares that same misfortune, as it recently got hit with that. It did get a lot of buffs to help with its survivability, but it also took a nerf to its fire duration. So the Alaska and the Stalingrad are the only 2 cruisers in the game that, if they get set on fire, it lasts a little bit longer. We got pretty fortunate seeing that Stalingrad come out flat broadside, and we got a Citadel against him. And I thought that he was still backing up, so I was thinking about getting kind of like a cheeky blind fire right there where he last was. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. And now we're getting focused and pestered by this carrier. But again, the AA rating on the Stalingrad is actually pretty darn good, as we rapidly take out 5 planes right then and there. And we took out some planes earlier as we were making this push into Bravo, and we're at 14 planes shot down already, which is pretty crazy. The Stalingrad, I thought, was still right there, because that's where my bearing indicator is showing that he's at. But unfortunately, he actually backed up. And look at where he's at. I had no clue that he was right there. It was almost like it seemed that that was way too fast for him to have backed up all the way over there. But lo and behold, that's where he's at. So he must have hit the island and quickly reversed, and he probably has the propulsion mod on to make it even faster. But that took me a little by surprise. The carrier is still coming in after me as we take a hit from our left-hand side by the Colombo that's way out there. Or maybe it's a Grosser Kurfürst, I can't remember. But some battleship that's way out there. Thankfully, the carrier gets a bad drop on us, and he does not hit us with those torpedoes. We have now exhausted all of our radars and all of our heals. We have truly maximized everything that we possibly could out of our consumables, and we no longer have anything left to utilize. Unfortunately, our Yamato goes down. Fair winds, Captain. You played it really, really well, and thank you for your support earlier. But he does end up going down right there, And now we're going to make a push after we've gotten Bravo Cap, and now we have the points lead, the ship lead, and the cap control. I don't really have to make this play, but I was afraid that I was going to get pinched. There is a Des Moines over here along with the Stalingrad, and then the last ship is obviously the carrier, which the last gnome puts it over here as well. So I was like, well, all 3 ships are over here. It's an opportunity for me to really start mopping these guys up. And I don't think the Des Moines knows that I'm making this play. And I was hoping to potentially catch him flat broadside. And because of our damage buffs and reload buffs, I figured we could probably take him out in 1 hit if we aim it right. And so we aim a little high. He is angled, but we get all good hits. And we take him off the board. And that leaves just the carrier and then the enemy Stalingrad, which now knows where we're at. He knows we're making this push. And the rest of our team does a really good job of focusing him down. Again, the Worcester played it really, really well. And he takes him out. And that pretty much all secures the win as the planes are now coming overhead. We're at 19 planes shot down. So it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that this is our clear sky. And there it is. And then we take out another plane. And so our total planes shot down are at 21. We go unspotted. And if you can see, my bearing indicator flipped behind me. And so the carrier is actually on the opposite side of the map. And that's why I start pinging that side to let him know that's where the carrier is, because I honestly thought he was over where I am. But he repositioned himself to the opposite side. So good job on him. I had no idea where he was. And this is kind of where I realized, you know what, Worcester, you done good, kid, and I appreciate all your help. And then we're just kind of playfully bantering back and forth, and then we both have the exact same idea to shoot each other. And if you see me do this out here, captains, if we have a good game and I shoot at you, that's not to say I'm mad at you. That's a high five, in my opinion. I wish we had the high five icon, but we don't. And I think he was thinking the same thing, as we were just really kind of saying good things to each other through the chat wheel. Unfortunately, there's not enough time left on the clock in order for me to take this cap. But man, if I could have gotten that cap, I think this would have been an even better XP than I had. But played very, very well. That was a super competitive game, and we amassed over 3,400 base XP. And again, 3 kills from us, 2 from the Yamato, and 3 from the Worcester, leaving only the enemy carrier alive. So all the kills belong to us on that one flank. So that's going to wrap it up, captains. That is the alternate Russian cruiser line. One that I had a lot of fun with. Thank you, captains, for sharing this journey with me. I look forward to featuring the next Tech Tree series whenever I have all the ships at my disposal for the line, all the way up through Legendary like I've done in the past. If you are curious about any of the other lines that I've done and you haven't seen them yet, you can check them out. There are playlists on my channel that have all of those, so don't be afraid to click on those. I always appreciate your support. Thank you for the subscribes that I've had, and for the comments, and for liking these videos. It means a great deal to me, Captain, so thank you. So that's a look at the Stalingrad. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, this is the USS Endeavor, signing off.